there's a lot of
a lot of noise.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise. That's a very good way of putting it, Laura. There's a lot of noise.
Well, that was why I stopped doing it. I mean, you have the book. I put the book together because people wanted me to put the book together. They wanted to hear what my experiences had been. They wanted the material, so I put it together. But I don't do that anymore. And the reason I don't do that anymore was because of the noise.
Well, I imagine you caught a ton of flack. I mean,
I got a ton of flack, and all I could see was, fighting and nobody, imposing any rigorous standards on what they were doing. Even if you have to make modifications to your standards because of the field you're working with, they still should be, somewhat rigorous. There should be a method.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I agree with you.
And I just completely got out of it. And
it's a shame because that's the reason we formed this organization, because of places like MUFON and all really didn't have anything strict about how to handle contacts or abductions or investigations along these lines. And I got to say, we're very, very strict, and we really are in this for hard data as much as possible. I mean, we do a lot of comparison study work too, because unfortunately, when in this particular subject, a lot of times that's all you can do because there's no physical, tangible evidence. But there is some tangible, physical evidence.
There is some, and I had a case once that had some, and 2 or 3 other so-called UFO researchers heard about it, and they swooped down on this poor woman.
Oh, I bet you they
snatched up that. I mean, I had a private investigator who was going to pass it, to a police lab as crime evidence without any terms like UFOs or abduction or anything like that, so that there would be no prejudice in the examination. And these UFO investigators, so-called, swooped down on it, snatched, told the girl, the poor woman, that oh, you don't want it to go to a police lab. You'll get into it's a big conspiracy. They're all out to get you. This is going to cause you a bunch of problems. Da 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 da. Give it to us. Give it to us. We'll. And so what they did is they took it and they shook it out on a shower curtain.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but that just sounds like something that some of these idiots would do.
And I mean, after that happened, and watching how people's minds could, and of course, somebody who has really, really had an experience, and they are traumatized.
Yes, they are.
I mean, they're traumatized to a level that's almost impossible to imagine. And, basically, in my opinion, a crime has been committed.
Yes, it's one of the things I say all the time, and I get complained about because I say it.
Well, so if you have a crime, somebody has been taken against their will, and very often they have been supposedly raped.
In some cases, they have been.
Yeah.
I got to say, when I first got involved with this 25 years ago, the first time somebody told me that, I looked at them like, well, you're just stupid. And but after really getting into the field and spending as long as I have been in it, I realized that some of these people were actually telling the truth.
Yeah.
And there was these physical things going on. And actually, there's a lot more than that goes on. But, it was just surprising to me. And it does depend on what alien species we're talking about, too, on some of the things that are happening. Reptilians are famous for having fun with the ladies. So.
Oh, yeah.
And they're actually quite famous. They're not quite as evil as everybody thinks they are, but they're not real nice guys. So.
I think they are more evil than anybody.
Well, a lot of people do, and I do understand that, because there's a lot of things that suggest that they're quite a bit evil, which there are some things in there, but we learned a long time ago, because of the amount of people and witnesses we have, that they're not the most evil by any means that are visiting the planet. The human-type aliens are much, much more vicious than the reptilians are. But I don't want to take anything away from what they're doing either. People get confused, like when they hear us talking. This is just levels of bad is what we're talking about here. We're not saying that either race is really good. And I got a firm rule. I judge everything by its actions. So, I have people from time to time that tell me they have a really good experience with the reptilians or the human aliens. But I asked them, did they call you on the phone and say, hey, Jane, can I come pick you up? Can I do this to you? Can I do that? Well, no, they just come and took me. I said, well, they abducted you, which in this country is a crime punishable by death. It's, you can't go around kidnapping people. It is a crime. In some states it is punishable by death, some by mandatory life sentences. And if it was a diplomat or something, it would be an act of war with another country. So I said, I don't understand how y'all can consider this a good experience if they took you against your will. Regardless what happened in the abduction, still they took you against your will. So I've always had this thing about judging them by their actions. And until they start calling them up on the phone and say, hey, Laura, you know what? I want to come take you out to dinner, and I want to tell you why we're here visiting the planet, that is a legitimate contact. You know, if they come take you in the middle of the night or the middle of the day or on your drive to work or while you're sitting having dinner, no, that's not.
Huh?
That is an abduction.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and it causes a big turmoil in the field because people want to talk about their good contact experiences, which I'm very skeptical about to start off with, but they don't want to discuss that they were abducted when this happened. They want to leave that part out. It's like selective memories, or let's selectively tell the truth here, and that makes me crazy. But
yeah, and I think that a lot of that that kind of reaction can be explained if people would read the book by Martha Stout called The Myth of Sanity. It's about dissociation, how when terrible things happen, you know, a channel of your mind will dissociate off.
I think I've got that. I think I've actually heard that on audio tape. See, I'm very funny. I don't have much time for reading now, so any chance I get, I'll find someone to either transcribe a book for me onto an audio file, or if it's already out, because a lot of books are these days, so I can plug it into my CD at work or in my car while I'm driving. Because I got to tell you, I do a lot of research on proxy while I'm on the road, because we do a lot of traveling, and I just, you know, it's just easier for me. Or now, when I do read, sometimes it's like when we're doing other shows, because I own a station. A lot of times when I'm producing other shows, and I'm just, you know, while the show's on, a lot of times I'll sit there and read, or I'll listen to something else, and because I can listen to the shows anytime. You know, they're all on archive, so it's not possible. Oh, Karen said hi, by the way. I forgot to say that. I've seen her in the virtual auditorium a few minutes ago.
Tell Karen hi.
Oh, she heard you. And
we hope to see you here soon.
yeah, I'm hoping they go over to France this year. I'm sure Karen would love to go over to France. We might not get her to come back. She might stay over there, and poor Richard would come back, have to raise the kids all by himself and stuff.
Oh, he likes it too.
Oh, no, I know he would. It's I always see it's quite beautiful over there. I got a lot. Like I said, I got a lot of friends that travel over there. I've got a standing invitation to go spend some time in Italy. I just haven't had the chance to do it, and so I'm planning on doing that hopefully next year sometime. They got we're working with a group over there restoring a church, and the reason I got involved because my last name is Montaldo, and there's a big Providence up there that's Montaldo, and they actually contacted me. And I come to find out, they got a church up there. They're restoring all the artwork. The church about 1,700. About 1,350 years old. And get this, in one of the murals on the wall is 2 UFOs. That's when they heard my last name, they contacted, and then when they heard what I did, they were even more fascinated.
Oh, that's amazing. It's a high strangeness, huh?
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. It's one of those things that, it's like when you were talking about one thing led to another, to another, to another. I think sometimes people, and I hate to use this word, but I think sometimes people are chosen for certain jobs. I don't know who's choosing. I don't know if it's aliens or some higher order, and I hate to even speculate on that. But I have seen this too many times. I've seen normal, everyday people doing something entirely different in their life, all of a sudden get wrapped up in this. And for no other reason than that they ran into this person, and then this came to their attention, and this, and then that, and then this, and the next thing they knew, they were writing books, or they were so involved in this, they were doing research, and in a lot of people...
It drove me crazy.
It does, and a lot of people, and a lot of times it just takes over your life for a while, which there's no normal explanation for this.
No, you know, there isn't, and that's why I became so desperate. And like I said, when I said I was reading 18 hours a day, this went on for like a couple of years, and I became so desperate for answers because there was so much noise and so much BS.
When there's a lot of BS.
And that's why, you know, I said, well, let me try this and see what happens, because I'm obviously, I felt so desperate for answers that here was a lot of information that was really scary. I mean, when you thought about it, it was really scary, and it needed an answer. So that was one of the reasons. I mean, I was driven by a sense of desperation. But even so, I wasn't going to let my sense of desperation, you know, take possession of my mind and make me believe anything that came down the pike, you know. So. Yeah. So we get this set of answers, and for years, I mean, this started in 1994. For years, we considered it to be just, you know, it's just an interesting artifact. Oh, yes, they say this is going to happen. Isn't that quaint? You know, well, blah, 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 you know, New World Order, you know, control of society, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's just, you know, how, because back in 1994, none of us could conceive of how we could get from there to here. We couldn't conceive of something like 9/11.
Oh yeah. It's
And it was just so, and then they talk about coming ice ages and climate change, and they were talking about this, 14 years ago. And so in that time, back in 2001 is when everything that they were talking about in 1994, at that point it was like, 5, 6 years before, it all started happening. And that's when I started thinking, wait a minute, what have we been doing? Let's look at this again here. Because what they're saying, there are not exact details on every point. There is some noise in that material also, because that's just the way things are. I'm not a perfect receiver, and the conditions are not always perfect. I do the best I can, and so there's some noise. But damn, I mean, it's a marvelously consistent body of material, and imposing any rigorous standards on what they were doing, even if you have to make modifications to your standards because of the field you're working with, they still should be, somewhat rigorous. There should be a method.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I agree with you.
And I just completely got out of it, and
it's a shame, because that's the reason we formed this organization, because of places like MUFON and all really didn't have anything strict about how to handle contacts or abductions or investigations along these lines. And I got to say, we're very, very strict, and we really are in this for hard data as much as possible.
You wanted the material, so I put it together, but I don't do that anymore. And the reason I don't do that anymore was because of the noise.
Well, I imagine you caught a ton of flack. I mean,
I got a ton of flack, and all I could see was, fighting and nobody
possible. I mean, we do a lot of comparison study work too, because unfortunately, when in this particular subject, a lot of times that's all you can do, because there's no physical, tangible evidence. But there is some tangible, physical evidence.
There is some, and I had a case once that had some, and
there's a lot of
noise.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise. That's a very good way of putting it, Laura. There's a lot of noise.
Well, that was why I stopped doing it. I mean, you have the book. I put the book together because people wanted me to put the book together. They wanted to hear what my experiences